Hey, everybody. All right. Thanks so much for coming down today. We're going to have a really awesome time. We have a really incredible special guest for you all, and I think you all are aware of who we have today with us. He's worked on everything from X-Men. I'm talking about the good X-Men, you know, like shoulder pads and pouches, and then all the way up to Batman, Dark Knight, but Mr. Andy Kubert. That's the highlight of the whole thing. We're good, guys. Let's wrap it up.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
So, hello, Andy. How are you?
That was a nice introduction. No, I've done everything except what was the major thing that I've never really drawn was Spider-Man.
You've never done Spider-Man?
I did a couple, maybe one or two covers.
Didn't you do a Got Milk ad with Spider-Man?
Got Milk ad I did. Got Milk, and I got Stan Lee to sign it at a convention. I got photos with him of it.
That's really cool.
With the original on it. Adam and I did a thing for New York City buses.
Really?
Spider-Man like crawling on the side of a bus. I don't know if it ever made it on the side of a bus. But that was about it. I was never a Spider. I like the character Spider-Man, but I've never.
Sure.
I'm not built to draw that guy.
That's all right. I think, so that's interesting what you just said. You're not built to draw Spider-Man. What kind of characters do you think that you are built to draw?
All the ones that I have drawn. You know?
But why?
But
like,
why?
What do you think works
If
with
you
your
look
style?
at somebody like Gambit or Batman, just the big, bulky, dark, brooding characters. And they're the ones like very highly influenced by what my dad did. And he was very good at those type of characters, realistic type of things. And where you could cast a lot of shadows and things like that and hide stuff, you know, so as you put capes on everything so you don't have to draw legs or feet or whatever.
So, okay, let's start at the beginning. When you started out, what was the first project you started off on? Like, how did you break into this industry?
Wow, gosh. I started out as a letterer. My father taught me when I was going through school. This one we used to do hand lettering. I don't know if you guys do that. But my father taught me how to hand letter.
Yep.
And then I would letter backups in Sergeant Rock that Tom and Jan used to draw them. I don't know if they're here today. Yeah, but I used to letter them for $3 a page. That's what I was getting paid. But it was great. You know, I knew how to letter and do the word balloons. You have to do them by freehand and all that stuff. Yeah.
Let's go. And then what was your first penciling or inking? What did you start breaking in with?
I got to think about this.
First folio?
It might be, yes. It might be first folio. Well, you got better memory
for those
than
of you
I
that don't know what first folio was,
that might have been the first thing I went to print.
What was it? It was the Kubert School.
Yes, my
book
father did
called
the
First
cover on
Folio.
it. Yeah, and I did a story in it. That was horrible.
Was that like a third year or third year?
I think I was
that
a
you guys
third year.
turned into a project and put it out there.
Right.
So all right, so you do first folio. You've got your work coming out. Where do you go to? What's the next big step? What did you jump into?
At the time, what helped me get my foot in the door was the lettering stuff. Because when I would bring up lettering up to Marvel or DC, I would bring my portfolio. And if I remember right, I would show my portfolio. I think I showed it to Archie Goodwin. It was the first time I showed my portfolio. And he was the editor of Epic magazine and all the Epic titles. He didn't have anything for me because he used all like high-end artists that were already established. So, but he saw, I guess he saw something in my portfolio because what I used the stuff I did in third year, all that for my portfolio samples. He called up, when I was sitting at his desk, he called up Larry Hama, who was the editor of Conan titles, and what else did he edit? I forget. Was it
G.I. Joe?
He wrote G.I. Joe, but I don't think he edited it. He wrote the G.I. Joe stuff. But anyway, Archie said, hey, I got this artist, Andy Kubert here. Would you want to take a look at his stuff? Larry looked at my stuff and then gave me, it was a backup. The first thing, no, I'm sorry, not backups, but a pinup in the back of Savage Sword of Conan. And I think that was my first thing.
So when you've been working in comics for what now? Since 80?
Knock on, is this wood? I've been working since I got out of school. Well, with lettering, I started out being employed by lettering in 1984 when I graduated. And I think I got my first drawing job probably about 3 months later after that.
So when you look at your work from then until now, how do you feel about like just the overall style as it's progressed, or do you still see a lot of similarities? Like, where do you feel you're at? Like,
I tell you, when I look at my old stuff, even when the stuff I drew 2 days ago, I was like, ugh. It's just, but I do that because I always, I'm psychotic about art and a lot of other things. My kids tell you. I'm just a nut. Maybe a little overbearing, but I'm always looking to improve. I never think anything's good enough. And it's not because I force myself to think like that. It's because that's just the way I am. So anything I do, I always try to improve it. So anything I look back on, I always go, bleh. But as far as styles and things like that, it's just happens. Whatever I'm working on at the time, whatever the story dictates. I never make a forced kind of decision as to what to do. It's always what it is. Like when I did this, the Dark Knight stuff. Now this I felt, of course I was heavily influenced by Frank Miller on this. And you can't, I couldn't do what I did on X-Men on this because it would have totally failed. And that's not how I saw it. I saw it in this way. And that's how I approached it.
So when you look at your career though, what are like some of the defining moments you felt like, wow, I'm exploding or getting that popularity, like some real key moments throughout the career, and how did you know that it was happening?
One of the first time, okay. Gosh, I don't know. It's kind of tough. When I got offered Batman versus Predator, they called me on it. Now, a lot of people don't know this. I don't know if any of you guys seen Batman versus Predator, the first one I did? Okay. That was one of my first successful things that I'd drawn. And they called me on it because the original artist, who was Mike Mignola, couldn't get it done in time. And Dark Horse had a contract with 20th Century Fox that the book had to come out before the second Predator movie. and Mike just couldn't get it done. I took it on, Adam inked it, and we cranked that out in 3 months. I worked day and night for 3 months straight. I fried out on it. I really fried out because each story was like 30 pages or something, and it was the first big thing that I had.
Wow.
Both Adam and I cranked out on the thing. But that sold phenomenally well. It did great. And I had no idea what it was going to sell. I don't know how anything's going to sell. And that really got my career kick-started.
And was that like you recognized it right away, all of a sudden, like, oh, wow, this is pretty incredible.
Yeah, especially when you see the royalty checks come in. Yeah, I was like, oh, my God. I remember showing them checks like that. And my dad's like, that doesn't happen. I know.
All right, so you do Batman versus Predator.
Yeah.
X-Men.
That Batman versus Predator, actually, like I told them this lots of times, and you have no idea. You can try to telegraph your career as best you can, but you have no idea where you're going to end up.
Right.
Batman versus Predator was actually the project that got me on X-Men because the editor, Bob Harris, saw it. And he started calling me to work on X-Men. At first, I think I turned him down for stuff, but then eventually he just kept calling. He called me every day. So I went up and see him, and the first couple X-Men things, he wanted me to be like the regular fill-in artist for Jim Lee. Now, I never read X-Men. I never went to comic shops, really, and all the books I read were the ones my father was an editor at DC, brought home only DC books, except starting in like the middle 80s, maybe the early 80s, he started bringing home Marvel ones too. But I never really read the X-Men, and I didn't know that much about them. But I knew who Jim was coming in, and I liked his art a lot. Bob saw some kind of potential in the Batman Predator stuff, plus Batman Predator was a successful thing. And I think I did a couple pinups or something like that. One of the first things I did was the cover to Uncanny X-Men 266, the first appearance of Gambit. And that's like one of the things I signed most at conventions and stuff. But the only reason why I got that job, and it's good for you guys to know, was because I was standing in the office at the right time because Jim Lee could not draw that cover because he was behind on deadlines. And they needed somebody to do it, and they needed somebody to do it really quick. And I'm standing there, and Bob goes, "Hey, you want to draw this cover?" I had no idea who Gambit was. I had no idea who the X-Men was. So, yeah, he gave me the reference. Jim did all the character designs, and I went off that, and I cranked out a cover like overnight.
Thank you. Super cool. All right, so, and also, if anybody has any questions, feel free to raise your hand. I might not call on you right away.
Yeah, because Frank, I'm just winging it. You know?
Yeah, like, that's what we're just having a conversation.
We have one big conversation.
Yeah, so
with him,
it's cool. Anybody has any questions?
Yeah, because I sit in my room, my little room by myself all day long, and I don't talk to anybody.
Yeah,
so.
and the same for anyone that's online.
You know,
if you have a question, just hit the raise your hand button, and I can call on you guys, and we'll get you on there. But I see, let's answer some questions really quick. Yeah. Damien, go ahead. You go first.
Being a family filled with artists, are there any family projects that you work on?
No. No. We all, I got asked to do something with Emma, but I'll probably do something later on, maybe down the road with that. As far as like other family members, we do our own thing. We establish ourselves, by ourselves. And
we have our own styles.
Yeah, I got our own thing to do, yeah.
Tyler,
I knew that question would come up.
Oh, of course, yeah. Tyler, you got a question.
We've heard from some of our teachers that you weren't the most experienced artist before you came to the school.
Oh, I sucked.
By the time you finished school, you're like amazing. Like, what do you think you did that like made you so good in that like short amount of time?
Oh wow. See, I didn't start drawing until I'll tell you. Okay, if you got a second. I went to college at Rochester Institute of Technology for packaging design. I dropped out after 3 months because it wasn't for me. I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. I wanted to maybe be a police officer, law enforcement, that kind of thing. I don't know why, I was a delinquent. But I talked to my dad on the phone, and my dad said, "Okay, why don't you come back and you'll work with your, you'll go through the school for a year so you can learn the school, learn what it's about, and then maybe I can work with, that's when my mom ran the office and stuff, and maybe work with your mother in the office and take it from there." I said, okay, I didn't have a plan. I didn't know. Like I said, I wing everything. So I did that, and as I was going through the school, I really got into it, man. I really got into the drawing. Now, granted, I never drew before, at all. And everybody that I attended with, like you guys, had a background in comics and basic drawing and all that kind of stuff. I had zero, nothing. And it was really, really hard for me. The only thing I did have was what, like I said before, my dad told me had a letter. I just really got into it and really applied myself. I didn't see any kind of real improvement until maybe halfway through my second year. And I'm going to be honest, I was so frustrated, I wanted to quit. It was a lot of work. Everybody else was so much better than me, and I still sucked. I was horrible. And I remember talking to my dad about it, and he said, and he would not tell me to do one thing or the other. But he said, "Hey, you've come a long ways, stick with it, see where it goes." I said, okay. So I stuck with it, and there was a couple things that I did where I really saw the improvement in the work. And I think it was something I was looking at. My father directed me to look at an artist. His name was Hal Foster, drew Prince Valiant. And that was a game changer for me. Also, Alex Raymond. And there were two big influences on my dad, too. Looking at their work, and I started incorporating it, not swiping or anything, but incorporating and trying to figure out what they did into my own stuff. And by doing that, and again, those two artists are phenomenal draftsmen, like great draftsmen. Doing that helped me out tremendously, and it came out into my work. And that really turned my stuff around in the basic drawing. As far as narrative art, that was my father teaching me. Storytelling, all that. The teachers were great here. I had Jose Delbo, who used to draw Wonder Woman. He was phenomenal. But as far as the storytelling stuff, that was my dad, and he was great, and that really kickstarted it for me. He had a lot of patience with me. Yeah, a real lot of patience with me. He would always tell me, yeah, you know, very, very encouraging. But man, my stuff was like, it was garbage.
I've seen the pages he's talking about. They were really good.
No, they weren't, man. No, thank you.
No. Yeah, no, they were horrible. No, no, they were great.
But that really helped me out.
Y'all turn on me that quickly. That's horrible. Go ahead, Kubert.
Is there any project that you did that you felt very proud of by the time you were done?
Marvel 1602, I was very happy. I loved working on 1602. Working on the projects where I have a good rapport with the writers. Some of them don't even want to talk to you, you know, and hardly even get an email back. Neil Gaiman was one of the best people I've ever worked with. He was awesome. He was personable. I talked for hours on the phone with him. I met him in New York. We went out to breakfast and stuff. Great, great guy. Great to work with. Great storyteller. You know, he was awesome. I worked on 2 projects with him. That and whatever happened to Kubert Crusader.
What do you look for in like a good writer? Like I know you're saying the communication one, but like
Communication is really important.
is that what you just look for? Like even like with the scripts? I mean, so this way you could just kind of call them up and chat with
Scripts,
them.
the way I approach scripts now, it doesn't matter what it is or who writes it. If I see it a different way, you know, and that's one thing that Neil told me. Neil said, "You are the artist on it. You're the director. You're doing the whole thing." He goes, "No matter what I write," he goes, "if you see a better way of doing it, do it." And that just like loosens all the strings on you, you know, and it's great. Frank Miller was another one working with.
Who's the worst writer?
Dang.
The worst writer, I'll
We
tell
just
you.
lost our internet connection.
No. I'm gonna be honest. The worst writer is the stuff I wrote myself. Yeah, you're right. It is. In that one, that was fun art-wise and stuff. I tried writing. Yeah, it's hard.
We've got a few questions from the online people.
Sure, let's see what we got.
I think this one of these is in reference to asking about the sites that editors check. Is ArtStation included as well as like DeviantArt and Twitter and stuff like that?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
That's my main portfolio, so I'm happy about
What
that.
other questions that we got there, Finn?
And then, what is the biggest asset that you can have as an artist to be better than the competition? Is it sequential art or time it takes you and then?
It's a package. It is, yes, it's talent, but it's also how you present yourself and deal with the editors. That's huge. Editors have to see that you can turn the stuff around quick. And they also have to know they can depend on you. That's huge, you know, because it's their neck and you know, it's their neck if the stuff doesn't come out on time. So that is absolutely huge. That may rank a little more. You get, of course, you have to have the talent and to show your work and all that kind of stuff. But even more so, to be able to present yourself where you can work with people. You're normal. You're sane. You're not, you know, some kind of narcissistic person. Oh, my stuff's the best. You have to be able to take notes and take criticism and make changes and that kind of stuff. And be human about it because it's all a collaboration. So it's kind of a package.
Good, Kubert.
For projects such as Whatever Happened to the Kubert Crusader, how do you draw in other people's style, yet maintain keeping it your own?
When I did that, I kind of switched it around where I pretended, I guess that's the word, pretended if they drew like me, like if Neil Adams drew like me or Frank Miller drew like me. That's how I got through that. If I did it the other way around, it was tough. And that's just my experience with it and how I was able to do it. It took me a while to figure that out, you know, as I'm sitting there going, what the hell do I do? You know, how do I draw like this person or that person? You know?
Do you do a bunch of sketches prior to like any of the projects you start
That project,
working
yeah.
on?
Oh, yeah. I do tons of stuff, yeah. Especially like on 1602, it did all kinds of character designs and stuff, and Neil and I went over them. Batman on the Dark Knight thing, yeah, did a ton of stuff, and Frank and I went over that. Actually, I think, that's not the trade, but they're all in the back of the
All in
trade.
the back.
Yeah.
On a normal day, what is your routine? Like warm-ups? Do you do art studies, and how many hours do you draw per day?
I used to. When you get older, you kind of slow down a little bit, take another perspective in life. Because for 35 years, I worked 7 days a week, 6.5, 24/7. Well, not 24, but I would. Okay, let's go. I'm going to just think about this. I used to get up 5 in the morning, start drawing by 6. I would eat lunch, stop for dinner, watch a little TV, play with the kids, go back and draw some more until I couldn't see anymore. And I would do that about 6.5 days a week for about 30-something years.
That's how we went through school.
That's exactly, and it doesn't end. That's honestly, that's why this school gears you up for that. Because once you get on a monthly book, that's what it is, and that's why you gotta love it. I loved it. I love doing it. Sometimes, you're still like, oh my God, I gotta sit there again, and oh my God, I can't see. And that, of course, does happen. You take a break or whatever. But
Once you can't see, you're done.
now my schedule is that. It's more a 9 to 5 thing.
There is 2 more.
Let's hit them.
What should a portfolio have? How many sequential pages, covers?
Well, I could do that.
And what shouldn't there? What should not be there? If the editor can also answer this, please.
Sometimes I don't agree with some what editors. I always when I was teaching, I would always try and show pencil and inks stuff. Okay, total artwork, and that's the way I was brought up, and that's the way I was told. Sometimes, an editor will say, "Hey, I just want to see pencils, or I just want to see inks." I would try to show at least 5 to 6 pages of sequential stuff, and at least 1 or 2 pinups or covers, storytelling covers or pinup type covers. Maybe a few pages of just pencils, maybe a few pages of just inks, but that's about it. And maybe I would say 8 to 9 pages total. Because when an editor is looking at the stuff, they'll go through the first couple of pages, and they'll know right away whether they can use it or not.
By page 2, they're going to know.
By page 2,
hire you.
That's it. Yep.
Yeah.
I know I've heard anywhere between 5 and 15 pages, but 8 and 9 seems like
8 or 9, yeah. 15 gets to be a lot. Yeah.
15, I'm handing you back your
I will tell you a story that when I was looking for stuff, I was up at DC, bringing my portfolio up there, and I went to see Karen Berger, who was editor of Swamp Thing, and I wanted to draw Swamp Thing stuff. So I'm showing her a portfolio, and I brought up so much stuff. And I remember her saying, "You got more?" I was just like, that's when I knew, okay, this is wrong. Needless to say, I didn't get any Swamp Thing stuff.
How did you manage family time?
It's very difficult, it was hard. You have to find time. And you marry a good wife, that it takes up the slack.
And then what's our last one?
And then how much emphasis is there on digital art versus traditional art in the industry right now?
I don't think it matters. I think as long as it looks good, I don't think it matters. It's a personal thing. I don't do digital art at all. Well, I can't say at all. A couple little things. Mm-hmm. I'll do corrections digitally or that kind of thing. But I honestly don't think it matters. There was a time when digital was just starting getting big, and I could tell things were digitally done, and I thought it looked mundane or not exciting. It was kind of dull, but they're getting the handle on a lot better, and you can't tell between pen and ink and digital now.
I think even with some of the digital stuff that they use right now, they use it to hide their weaknesses. So it's like they slam all those textures all over the place, and it's like the same thing over and over again.
But then you have artists like Jorge Mendes.
Well, he's incredible,
freaking phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's great.
Go ahead.
I'm getting down to the nitty gritty. What are your favorite inking tones?
Let's see. I use a 102 Rockwell. I use a 8402 number 2 Raphael brush, and whatever ink I could get. I also use 512 and 513 ballpoints. Pretty much it. Every once in a while, I'll use the thin markers. I forget what they're called.
What, like a micron?
Yeah, like microns. Yeah, for small little faces and that kind of thing.
What about do you use quick drafts at all?
Which one?
Rapidograph for like buildings.
Nah, I hate rapidograph. I used to letter rapidograph, and they always dried out, and I throw them out, and I couldn't stand them.
Yeah.
Maybe they're better now. You know, this was a long time ago when they had the little needles in there, and they're awful.
Who else had questions over there? I saw a bunch of hands before. You still have one? You good? You got answers? Good? Go ahead.
Like drawing until you can't see anymore. How do you keep your eyesight? Because mine over.
Oh, mine's horrible. I got like 3 pairs of glasses. And yeah. Nah, that's one thing you got to watch because you need your eyes. Yeah. No, my eyes are. You know, I just went to the eye doctor. I got new glasses and stuff like that.
Brian.
So I know you said you started picking up your skills about you said halfway through your second year?
Yeah.
So you said you started working 6 days a week, like 24/7.
Right.
You really just built that momentum where you were really able to immerse yourself into your work. Did that start while you were in school or only when you started working?
I could see things happening when I was in school. I could see that improvement. Like I said, when I started getting influenced by those 2 artists I had mentioned, I could see that happening. But then when I started getting onto projects and you're doing so much more work than you're doing here, and you could see the momentum building on stories and pages as you progress. If I was on, like when I started on X-Men, I could see that by issue, maybe my 4th or 5th issue, I could see myself actually starting to get comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And things starting to really come together. That always happens with me. I was talking with somebody recently and said, it's usually, and this is just me, I don't start getting comfortable at least till at least the 3rd issue on things. You know, when you get your head into it and you start figuring things out, you start figuring out the characters and all that kind of stuff. But as far as maybe you're talking a little bit more about the art in general, you know.
Yeah.
I think it really started happening. The more you do, the better you get, you know, as long as you're not just concentrating on getting it done. That you can't do because then you're just basically hacking it out.
Yeah.
You know, you have to really get your head into it. And the better it comes out when you're doing it and you immerse yourself into it, you get your head into it more, you start figuring things out more, the better it comes out and the faster you get at it. It's awesome. And the easier it gets.
Yeah, the more motivation you have to go forward now.
Exactly. And the better you get, the more you do, the easier it gets, the more fun you have with it. It takes, and let me tell you, what I just said is not easy, man. And it takes years to friggin' do it, like a long time. What used to get me it used to get me depressed because I lived at home when I went to school here. And so I always had access to my dad. So his studio was in the basement downstairs. So if I had problems or questions, which I always did, you know, I'd go down and show him, you know, and ask him what to do. And it would be effortless for him. Like, so easy for him to show you, you know. And I was like, I can never do that, you know. And that kind of got a little depressing for me. But he would see that, and he would actually say, you got to remember, I've been doing this for 4 years. And I've drawn this one head 1 billion times. So I kind of know what it is. And that kind of helped me out a lot, too, you know. I know you guys get frustrated, right? You know, you get really frustrated. You know, you want it to come out good and all, you know, and it's not. You just got to stick with it. Another thing that I will tell you that helped me out a lot is that whatever you're drawing, to picture it in your head first, the best you can before you go on paper. That helped me out tremendously. There was a teacher here when I was going through school that said, just start drawing. And that didn't work for me. And that actually pissed me off to no extent because I was frustrated. I was like, I'm just making lines, you know? But no, it was my father that told me, just picture it in your head first. Easier said than done. It takes a while, but it helps, especially when you're laying out pages.
Matt, you still have a question?
Yeah, and this question can be applied to all the guests here. I was wondering if there was any up-and-coming artists that have caught your eye, and what about their work is it that kind of caught your eye?
I don't see the Marvel books, you know, I don't get them. I see the DC books, but there are a couple of good DC artists. I hope I can remember their names. Okay, Jorge Jimenez, I mentioned before, he's relatively new, but I remember when he was coming in and stuff, think the first thing he did was Super Sons, was it?
Superboy.
But when I saw this guy's stuff, I told Dan, you know, I said, this guy's really, really good. You know, he's like, oh. Dan liked his stuff too, though. But yeah, I saw the promise in his work, and who else? A bunch of other ones that I don't know the names.
Oh, wait, I know you had a question before, and then I swung over there. So.
How does it feel doing something like Flashpoint and then seeing it get like an animated movie and now getting adapted into like a live action movie? Like, how does it feel working on it and seeing it like progress like that?
It's pretty awesome. I'm not gonna lie. When we were working on it, that was the farthest thing from my head. I had no idea. We got a lot of mileage out of Flashpoint. In the first Shazam film, they used 3 of the characters, the kid characters, in that, and I got street credit on it too. It was neat, and I went to the movie premiere too on that. Yeah, that was fun. I actually got a chance to go to a bunch of premieres, which is a lot of fun.
What's your favorite one you went to? Your favorite premiere?
Gosh, there were a lot of good ones. Shazam.
I went to the lightning bolt struck down. You
Joker premiere. I went to the Joker premiere. I actually almost ran right into Joaquin Phoenix. I almost knocked him over. You know, they have the red carpet, right? Okay. And it's actually, I'll tell you a little bit about it. It's neat to see. They blocked off all of Hollywood Boulevard in front of Grauman's Chinese Theater when they show films. And they have this big wall up and this red carpet that goes down. And all the actors and producers and all that stuff. And Jim and Dan walk down the red carpet. I never walked down the red carpet. Thank goodness. I don't want to do it anyway. But after it was all done, Teresa and I were walking down the red carpet. Everybody was going to the theater. So I turn around. And I think I'm like one of the first ones to try to go into the theater. And I go around the corner, and I almost bump into these people. And it was, I said, "Oh, I'm sorry." It was Joaquin Phoenix and his girlfriend there. And I said, "Dude, I'm sorry." You know, and he just stared at me with like that when he was in Gladiator, like that look. And he goes, "Oh, you know," he goes, "That's okay, it's okay."
You want to answer some more questions? Or
Sure.
Okay, sure.
I got no work.
When it comes to dealing with a large project like you said with the X-Men, how did you break up your time with each of the parts of making that comic? But like some days you would choose to do this specific amount of work,
Yep.
this specific. What was your process of trying to pick and choose how you did that?
Sure. In the morning is when I could do the layouts the best because I'm freshest in the morning. So I would try, when I'm first starting out on a script, I would try to break down thumbnail-wise, just do that for about maybe 4 or 5 pages. And that would take me from about 6 to 9 o'clock in the morning. Then I would try to break down a page in about another hour or so, like just a full page, loose, very loose, and then try to tighten it up, have it all tightened, linear. I call it a linear breakdown, no blacks or rendering in it, up till around lunchtime. Then between noon and the rest of the day, till about, because I usually had to send out a page a day. We would FedEx a page a day. That's how tight we were. I would FedEx a page to the anchor every day. I'm glad I never paid that FedEx bill. That was horrible. But I would finish off the page, do the spotting blacks and all the rendering stuff up until FedEx cutoff time, I think was 5 o'clock when I had to call it in. So I had to get it done by then. Then after dinner, I would try to lay out the next page for the next morning and have that done. I would go, I had it figured out for when I would physically get tired. And I could do the blacks and the rendering when I was tired and still be happy with it. All the storytelling figuring out, I had to do that in the morning when I was fresh. Yeah. Good question, though.
All right, we're going to do a few more and then we're going to wrap it up.
How was working with Grant Morrison on the ongoing Batman run versus working with Tom King on the Superman Up in the Sky series?
They're both talented guys, both great guys. There was really no difference. I know them both very well. Tom I know a little better. Grant I see every once in a while, but they're both fun.
Did he cast a spell on you?
Excuse me?
Did he cast a spell on you?
Grant? That's hilarious. He might have, and I not know it. I don't know. I tell you one story. We were sitting at signing at San Diego Comic-Con, and I was before him. And for whatever reason, I started doing sketches. You know, people ask me to do sketches. And I don't know why I started. And Grant's sitting at the end of the table by himself, and he got really mad. I was like, because nobody was coming by, because I held up the line from his sketches. And I said, oh, dude, I'm sorry. So I stopped doing it and everything. You know? But he's a sweetheart of a guy.
That's when the spell was cast.
Yeah. That's what I was getting.
I got to give credit to Malachi for that joke. I stole it. I heard it, guys. Damon, then I'll swing back over.
We got some.
Sure.
You were talking about what was it, self-published things, right? So,
and then
how much of self-published things should you have to show others? Should it be like 2 or 3 books? Should it be more? What would you say your range is for that?
I don't know if you could put a limit on it or not, or say how much. I think it's just I don't know, show a book or 2, I guess, you know, just to show what you pretty much do. And like I said, an editor or whoever that wants to hire you will know within the first couple of pages whether they want it or not. So I don't, you know, it might be just one issue. But, yeah.
Just make sure you're putting together good work.
Not just
okay.
Do you have to have social media to network, or are there other avenues that you can use outside of it?
I don't know the other avenues. I don't do social media, so I don't know. I think Evan's a good one to do that. I really don't do that.
I would say, yeah. You need social media as an artist to get your art out there. If people aren't seeing it, then you can't get hired.
It's important to have a presence online.
Yeah.
I just don't think, in my personal opinion, just don't let it take over your life.
I don't think you need a huge presence online. It matters who the people are that are following you. If you have like 100 followers and 10 of them are editors at DC, then you're going to the right people, right?
Right.
But if you have 1 million followers and none of them work at any other companies, you basically just have fans, and they like your work, but they can't hire you to do things that you want to do. So
Kickstarter.
Yeah, Kickstarter.
The big following is
is
only really useful for self-publishing with
maybe I'll just say I'll keep it to 100 instead of the million.
And then there's nobody else over here, so now I'm going to swing back to the Don. This is the last question. The last question! This better be a good question. All the pressure's on you right now.
I was interested, what single comic that you have made has sold the highest number? Like, what is your best-selling comic before it done?
Probably my first issue of X-Men. That was probably about, I think it was maybe 1.5 million, somewhere around there. Batman vs. Predator, which, has nothing to do with Marvel, that did around 600,000. I think the first issue of Dark Knight.
This sold like crazy.
Yeah, first issue of Dark Knight did about 600 too. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, everybody, let's just say thank you so much, Andy Kubert, for coming.